What is up, Oh, 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 oh. What is up, everybody? This is the Fantasy Insiders Daily Fantasy NFL Show, and I'm here with Davis Maddock. Davis, your video does look really nice. You're
Because you're the man. You rewarded me for being a profitable DFS player by gifting me a company laptop.
Yeah, I did. And your hair and just overall look, you look like someone killed Kenny.
Who killed Kenny? I
Yeah.
can take my hood down, but my hair's a mess, man. It's been finals week. I don't even think I've eaten a meal in the last 36 hours. I can't remember eating.
This is kind of how you look like last year, right before we went to San Francisco and you had no sleep at all.
Yeah, that was fun.
But anyways, Davis Maddock, Dan Gasper, Mr. Total 05, and Evan Silva from Roto World. Evan, how are you this week 16?
Doing really, really well. Huge congrats to Dink. That was badass. And the most badass thing, though, maybe was Dave's celebration, the Tarzan. Man, that was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's I'll be honest. I don't even know where that move came from because that's like
I believe that David was wearing that same hoodie that he's wearing right now on that DKTV show. Don't know if he's changed yet.
Hashtag DFS Life. Hashtag Matt Life.
I wear this hoodie every day, so I feel you.
It's either a Vanderbilt hoodie or an Athletics hoodie for me.
Huge athletics fan, right?
Yeah, I'm a big Ace fan.
So who do you like at first base today, Dan?
Oh man, baseball's going to be just absolutely crazy with all these moves that have gone on in the off season. But we're here talking about there's still NFL to be played, and I wonder if we can get some like season long guys to kind of jump in the DFS pool this week because most of the season long guys are out, right? So like 80 to 90% of season long guys are not playing fantasy football this week. So
How many championships are you in, Evan?
What, like season long?
Yeah,
I think like 3.
nice.
Yeah, right.
I'm just in one. I've one sweat, so I feel you.
Right. And so that's kind of the allure of daily fantasy is that you get the championship feel even when you're not like in a championship. Like, so hopefully there's some new people coming in. I know there's still big tournaments out there. Obviously, DraftKings has their $3.1 million tournament with a $1,500 buy-in. So it might be a little steep for some people.
They've been giving out lots of tickets though. Like I'm playing NBA tonight just to try and get some tickets there.
I don't think giving out is the proper word.
Well, just running a lot of satellites and stuff.
Yes, and it's smart by them to do so. But as far as like craziness goes, this is where like proper research can pay off. Week 16 and especially week 17 because of all the injuries and people tanking.
Give me Jamal Charles sitting week 17 again. Now Davis last year week 17 was like the best DFS play in the history of ever.
Week 17 is going to get interesting, man.
Mm-hmm. All my favorite players who suck and are on the bench are finally going to get to play, and it'll be great for me.
Well, on that note, Davis, I'll let you take it away.
Well, let's start off with what I think is one of the more interesting conversations and something I haven't made my mind up on. And in fact, my article just got published, and I didn't even feel comfortable making a note on the Indianapolis wide receiver situation yet because I needed to talk to some other people about what the proper reaction to T.Y. Hilton sitting in this game would be. I mean, you couldn't pay me to use Reggie Wayne or Hakeem Nicks in a cash lineup, but if Hilton sits, do you think Moncrief is like a safe cash game option, Evan?
I do. I think he's a safe option with upside. I think that we would see him play about 70% of the Colts' offensive snaps. I think he'd have a floor of 5 targets, maybe 6, and he could see as many as 10 or 12 like he did in that Week 8 game when Reggie Wayne was out.
Yeah, I agree. The thing I would love Luck this week as like a cash game option if Indianapolis had anything to play for. but they've already won their division, and I believe that they're drawing dead for the number 1 seed. Is that correct, Evan?
No, no, but
Okay.
they can't move at all. They can't move a whole lot. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, look, and I think that missing Hilton is a big deal for Andrew Luck.
hmm
Uh,
Well, his
I mean,
ability to stretch the field it create
right.
like
That's how they get their chunk plays and their chunk yardage. I don't, with Breeze facing Atlanta and Aaron Rodgers, such a good bet to rebound against Tampa Bay, which will be without Gerald McCoy. I'm just kind of overlooking Andrew Luck, but
I mean, I agree.
he would be a little bit of a contrarian, an interesting contrarian play, though. Indoors, big point total, even with Hilton on the shelf.
All right, what are your thoughts on the Moncrief situation, Dan? I know he got you pretty good last week.
He got me so good. But DFS is all about short-term memory. And that's kind of how I'm approaching it this week. I think he's always a GPP option, and I actually liked him as a GPP option this week, regardless of Hilton's status. But looking like Hilton's sitting, I do like him, and I'm glad that Evan thinks his floor is around 5 to 6 targets, because that's basically what I pegged him at as well. So I think for $4,000 on DraftKings, $5,900 on FanDuel, I think that's something you have to give a hard look at in cash games and GPP alike, because I think he is pretty much their only downfield option as well. You're not going to get Reggie Wayne that's going to give you any big plays. Hakeem Nick's not going to give you any big plays. So he's got a chance to kind of fill that big play role for the Colts. So if anyone's going to get it, it's going to be him.
Yeah. There are actually a couple other cheap wide receivers, though, who I feel are maybe even similarly bettable to Moncrief, though they don't play in quite as good of offenses, which would be Nick Toon and Albert Wilson. I had a spirited discussion yesterday with Leone and JJ about Nick Toon, in which they both completely disagreed with me. But he ran more pass routes than Kenny Stills last week, and just by the nature of what he's physically capable of doing on a football field, his probability of scoring a touchdown is just as high, if not higher, than Kenny Stills. And this is where Evan gives me the not wave, because he hates Nick Toon.
Yeah, I don't think Nick Toon is very good. I don't think he was very good at Wisconsin. I mean, do you think that – I know that he was good at the Combine, but where else was he good? Did he have a big – I guess he might have had a big market share at Wisconsin.
He did, and he was good converting in the red zone. But, Wisconsin, they run the ball.
Because they got that run-heavy offense, and he was, their only guy, probably.
Yeah, it's the same thing as, the Georgia Tech wide receivers. Their lead wide receiver is almost always going to have good market share numbers, good touchdown numbers, because he's the only game in town. And, I mean, he hasn't been able to get on the field until literally, their entire team just started dying. This is his third year in the NFL, and he's just now starting to see the field.
So is he min price, and you're suggesting him as a tournament play, I would suppose, right?
I think it's a similar situation to Marcus Wilson last week on FanDuel. Not so much on DraftKings, but he's $4,900 on FanDuel, which is $400 away from the minimum. And you're looking at combinations like Calvin Johnson and Nick Toon, or Harry Douglas and Kelvin Benjamin, or just combinations like that, where it's two sort of mid-tier options, or one of the elite options and Nick Toon. And so there's also this thing where Drew Brees has not been crazy good this year, but if you go look at his numbers, he's leading the NFL in completion percentage. I saw that today and was shocked that was the case. And with them having the highest team total of the week, and with the matchup, I don't see any real difference between Marcus Wilson for $4,500 last week, which we all agreed was a very good play, and Nick Toon for $4,900 this week.
Well, I am glad to see you kind of going out on a limb and recommending someone who's not Demarius or Jordy or Gronk.
I hate you guys.
That's a step forward. That's a step forward.
You know who my cover boy? You know who my cover boy was this week, Evan?
Who?
Calvin Johnson.
My Marcus Wilson is Terrence Williams, and at least I don't pretend that Terrence Williams is a good player, but he will be out on the field for a lot of snaps. He will. He's playing in a game with a 56-point over/under, and I mean that's about the extent of my analysis right there. And he costs min price on FanDuel, so if he catches 3 balls for 30 yards, he doesn't hurt you that much. And if he catches a TD, you're
He's
you're ahead
never
of the game.
he's never having the 3 for 30 though. Like it's like for him,
I
it's
know.
like 2 for 120 in one, or almost nothing.
I know, but in a game with such a high over/under, you
Mhm.
got to think he's going to catch at least two, and he's got a little bit of downfield ability, and he's
Yeah, he
big.
does. Well, that's what he did. That's what he did at Baylor. He was RG3's deep guy at Baylor.
Yeah, he was a vertical stretcher. What do you think, Dan?
Can I give my Marcus Wilson?
Yes,
Yes.
you can.
And you guys are gonna hate it, and I don't even care that you're gonna hate it. I kind of gave it to Davis already.
Oh,
on
this
our
is.
podcast.
Get ready to vomit, Evan. It's
Tavon
so
Austin.
bad. It's so bad.
Ooh, no.
No.
Tavon Austin
No.
No.
is
come
my
on.
Marcus Wilson this
Come on,
week.
fella.
It's gonna happen. I'm
Yes.
channeling my inner. He has. If you look through his game logs, he actually has a little better floor than I think you would really expect on DraftKings, especially. 3 out of his last 4, he's gotten double digits for min price. He gets the rushing opportunities. He's probably gonna get 2 to 3 this week.
Yeah, he's
That
like
puts him in play
he's like
there.
a destitute man with AIDS' version of Brandon Cooks, with Sean Hill as his quarterback.
How sad is it that Tavon Austin is like essentially Preston Parker?
How sad is it that his teammate, who was drafted 4 rounds after him, is better than him?
But okay, here one question I do want Evan to ask, because I haven't been able to find anything concrete on it. Why? And this is part of the reason why I'm intrigued by potentially giving Austin a chance. He saw 93% of the team snaps last week. Do you have an explanation for that, or is it kind of just game flow, or why? Why did you see it?
Honestly, Dan, I didn't even look at him this week. I guess that was an oversight on my part. But I mean, I've moved on from him.
Yeah, I mean, and he's obviously a GPP play, and if I played him, it'd be a pairing with St. Louis defense, and try to hit one out of the park with a punt return.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm actually going to do a very not Davis Maddock thing and say that I don't think it's a very good play, but I also don't think it's like the worst play in the world given the salary that you're investing on DraftKings. Like
it's not a Paul Richardson.
No, God, never. I don't know why I listened to you. That was because I know Paul Richardson sucks, so like I don't even know why I listened to you on that. But
it's not a Drew Brees against the Panthers. But by the way, how did that happen to be like? I mean, he is on a roll. Drew Brees is rolling right
Panthers
now.
defense is good.
And-
Panthers, yep.
All they had to do was cut Kaysen, Evan. That's all they had to do. They cut Anton Kaysen, and then they solved their entire defensive problems.
Pretty much.
It's
Anyways,
crazy.
what is your guys' strategy at quarterback this week? Because I really think it's Rodgers or Brees, and I can't look at really anybody else in cash games.
Yeah, it's Breeze for me.
Yeah, I think it's a top end week, no matter how you slice it. I mean, your lower end options this week are Case Keenum and who's the other guys are throwing around?
Clausen.
Jimmy Clausen. People are actually considering rostering Jimmy Clausen, which is just
Stop
horrible.
It. Okay, Evan, take a guess on
not
what
that
Jimmy
bad.
Clausen's career adjusted yards per attempt is.
In the 5s.
4.1. 4.1. Like if Dan suited up for the Packers this weekend against Tampa Bay, he could probably get to 4.1 adjusted yards per attempt.
I could still see playing him at min price, but like only over Case Keenum. Only if you're really trying to decide between those two guys, just because of Mark Trestman's offense and the weapons there, and et cetera, and a lot of possibility for garbage time. And I'm sure that Mark Trestman, I know people are down on him, but he's a great offensive coach, and he'll do things to make Jimmy Clausen look better than he really is, for sure. If you're going to decide between those guys, I would say go with Clausen. But I would definitely go with a high-end quarterback this week.
You want to know something that's interesting about the Trestman situation is his problem is that he's too intellectual to be a football coach, like a head football coach. Like you have to be bigger and dumber and more fiery to be a good NFL coach, pretty much. Like, and it's weird to say that, but it's really true. Like it's just the way football works. But I would not roster either of those guys. I think Breeze especially on DraftKings, 8,200, or is it 83? It's one of the two. But that price tag is like ludicrous for him. And Stafford has like a nice team total and obviously an insane matchup. But like, don't you see them being up like 28-3 at the end of the third quarter? So like, you're not going to get the volume. So you're basically hoping that Matt Stafford, who is historically one of the least efficient starting quarterbacks in the NFL, to be crazy efficient for three quarters. Like he's not a bad play, but I would much rather use Breeze. Do you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, I do. I'd much rather use Breeze. A couple other guys I'm looking at too is kind of contrarian stacks for GPPs. You mentioned Andrew Luck. I like pairing him with Moncrief, and the other guy I actually like. If you're again a little off the board, but I think should have a decent enough outing this week is Tom Brady. Pair him with possibly Shane Vereen and Rob Gronkowski. Vereen's 3,800 on DraftKings, and he's cheap as heck on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, man.
5,500 there. So I think for tournaments, I have no problem with that.
They use him a lot against the Jets too. They did earlier this season. He had 2 TDs, and then in 2012 he had
83-yard touchdown on the wheel route.
Okay,
against Mark Scott.
He had some good games. He's so cheap. I don't know if you can play him in cash though. What do you think, Dan?
I don't think so. I think we can accurately predict that he will get solid usage this game, but I still don't know if that's enough to run him out as a cash game option because there is volatility there. But it sets up. They're not going to run, LeGarrette into the New York Jets front or Jonas Gray for that matter. It sets up for a Vereen game, but I don't know if I'd risk any cash game money on him.
Yeah, I agree with that, though I do think he is a good tournament option. I mean, there's a bunch of good mid-tier value at running back this week. Like, there's a bunch of guys that I would consider using, and oddly enough, someone that I haven't seen written up or talked about a whole lot is Trey Mason. But anytime that the Rams are like a big favorite against a bad run defense, like that is like prime Trey Mason time. Is Trey Mason like a thing for you this week, Evan?
Oh, he's my favorite RB play.
Yes, for sure. Hold on, C.J. Anderson or Trey Mason?
Trey Mason will be in every single one of my lineups.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear, Evan. We have had good luck historically being on the same side on Trey Mason.
That's true. Let's not get too confident and let's just move forward.
Okay. C.J. Anderson, though, facing the Cincinnati Bengals, who I just wrote them up, I believe are 25th in adjusted rush defense DVOA. They're terrible. And C.J. Anderson did not have a good game last week. Peyton Manning did not have a good game last week, and he still got to double-digit FanDuel points. But that was, so far, his only effort as a starter where he hasn't reached 20 FanDuel points. Why won't the sites price him appropriately, Dan?
No idea.
7,800 on FanDuel. 7,800. I mean, if I asked you who scores more fantasy points this week, Jamal Charles or C.J. Anderson, it's like a conversation, right? And it's $1,100 difference between the two of them. Like, yeah. I expect Anderson to be close to like 50% owned in cash games. Should be even higher.
Yeah, I think once you take price into consideration, I think he's a slam dunk top choice or top option at running back this week. I mean, and the matchup's great. There's no denying anything. I kind of have an eerie feeling about him this week for some reason. You just know that, and I don't think it's going to happen this week. But one of these games coming up, it's just going to be Peyton Manning time. Like he's just going to go out and start throwing the ball around again. And it's going to be once the team finally starts game planning for run first Broncos off.
I don't see it. He's almost as old as Rashad Jennings. And at some point, age catches up to you.
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to do it this week because, like David said,
I'll match your hot take with one of my hot takes. Manning realized pretty early on in the season that he wasn't going to hit the record pace that he was on last year, And because his team is winning games, I don't think he really cares. Like, once he realized that he wasn't breaking his own records, he was like, let's just win some games. Like, I'll throw to Demaryius when he's open, because I think throwing... I mean, is there any easier job for a quarterback than throwing to Demaryius Thomas? He just catches everything. Defenders don't stand a chance against him. But other than that, like, I don't think... And especially with Julius Thomas inactive and not healthy, he's been like, whatever, I'll let C.J. Anderson get tackled. Like, I think that there's a hot take for hot take battle, and we'll see who's right. But I definitely think that I don't see any reason for them to come out and throw this game with the Bengals' rush defense being so bad.
And I completely agree.
I think it's another game where they use Virgil Green. They're blocking tight end. We see Julius Thomas probably on limited snaps. Virgil Green is like a top 5 run blocking tight end in the NFL. I mean, he's basically a 6th offensive lineman, and I mean they can pound you. They have a 5'8", 225 power back, and they have one of the best run blocking tight ends in the league, and they have a pretty good offensive line. So I mean they can win that way, and that's the way that you attack Cincinnati, who actually has a really good pass defense, but is terrible versus the run.
Yeah, and I mean my favorite thing in daily fantasy is finding a generally bad to mediocre defense that is good in one aspect but bad in the other, and then using the player or the path of least resistance, which I think is C.J. Anderson this week. Do either one of you have like a high price running back that you're feeling you need to force in your lineups? I mean, I would have liked to have gotten Murray in, but it just seems too murky with his injury stuff right now. Le'Veon Bell in a good spot against Kansas City defense. Do you feel like he's more of a secondary value option, Evan?
He's just become so expensive that I don't know. I mean, how are you going to really get him in unless you're, starting Moncrief and Terrence Williams and, starting a cheap tight end with, if you're going to pay up at quarterback.
Yeah,
he's just tough to fit in. I really like Latavius this week, and I know that he sort of burned people last week.
But he was still good though. Like he still like in a game that his team got crushed. He still grinded out 9 fantasy points.
He's legit, dude. I mean, he's a legit player. It's just a matter of the Raiders giving him the rock. And if you think that the Bills are going to go let down after a home win against Green Bay, traveling across the country, to Oakland, if they're going to let down a little bit, and really, I mean, what does that even mean? Because it's not like the Bills go and blow teams away anyways. So the game is going to be close. Pretty much any way you slice it. And I could also see them letting down to the extent that they lose. And why would they lose? It would be because of Latavius Murray.
Michael Leone is somewhere just crying thinking about this. So this is an awesome example of the Raiders' decision-making, and maybe he was banged up or didn't want to come back in, but when they were down they were on the 1-yard line with like 30 seconds left, and they ran an isolation running play with Maurice Jones-Drew. Like that happened in an NFL football game. I don't know why, but it did. But I don't think that you can view him as like a cash play because he's the same price as Lamar Miller, or I think $100 off from Lamar Miller, and I prefer Miller to him this week. Though I do think that Latavius is like a great secondary option though. Are you on the Miller train with me, Dan?
Oh yeah, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah.
For 4,400, I think. As far as price plays go, he's right up there with C.J. Anderson as one of the top price plays on DraftKings. It looks like Lamar or Daniel Thomas is doubtful too, so that definitely doesn't hurt.
Here's something that blew my mind that I came across researching today. Lamar Miller has the second most carries inside the 10-yard line of any running back in the NFL. That's crazy considering how much they used Daniel Thomas at the goal line last year. But like he is just consistently getting chances to score touchdowns, which is not reflected in his price tag at all. He just hasn't converted very many of them. He scored 6 touchdowns inside the 10 on 25 carries.
Yo, so I'm surprised that, especially you, Davis, you guys don't seem to be on Rodgers as much. Is it just because you feel like he's about even with Breeze and Breeze is so much cheaper?
Yeah, I think Rodgers it's gonna be one of those things where like that Rodgers Nelson stack in tournaments is gonna be like underowned by about 8%. Like he'll definitely be on a bunch of my GPP teams, but in cash games I would rather take the discount with Breeze. But I mean, Rodgers is what, like a lock for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against this defense, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Rodgers quite a bit too. I'm not off him. I think with how close it is, and Breeze projected to be in more of a close game than just a complete blowout, I think that gives the slight edge to Breeze on a per dollar basis. But no one's denying Rodgers is a great play this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I agree. Hey, Evan, do you want to pimp Alex Smith right now? Because that was what was happening on the show yesterday. Is people were talking about Alex Smith. So.
Well, no, I'll not waive that. 10 times out of 10.
Real quick, I'll do. This is Dan and I talked about this on the podcast, but I'll reiterate this hot take.
Davis, how do you put up with that, man?
Dude, they were yelling at me for a good 15 minutes about saying that like Nick Toon was like a good min play. So then I yelled at them for saying Alex Smith was a good cash game play. So that was fun. But I do think that Albert Wilson is in play this week for a really cheap price. He basically played as a starter last week. He played 6 less snaps than Kelsey and Bo, and he's really good. He's a really good rookie. He had like a crazy market share at whatever college he went to. It was a smaller squad. I don't remember which one, but
Georgia State, I believe.
Georgia State. There you go. I mean, I love my small school guys with crazy market shares, and Albert Wilson is that dude.
He had great measurables too. He's just so small, man. He's a little tough to get behind. But, yeah, I mean, Alex Smith, look, I guess you would try to stack him up with Kelsey.
Yeah.
Just beware of the stacks where you really might get 0 TDs. I mean, there's like a good percentage that you get 0 TDs out of that stack. It could work. I mean, the Steelers are that bad. But
they really – that defense is so bad.
It's really bad.
I would say
Harry Douglas had a day against them.
Yes, Evan. I love that you have basically become a member of team big wide receiver. It's one of my favorite things in football.
Well, people in the actual NFL are. I mean, Sean Payton has talked about it. How the passing game in the NFL is a contested catch.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to win.
That belief
of course, there are going to be small wide receivers who succeed because defenses play to that, and then therefore they can succeed underneath, or they just they're literally too quick that they're like uncoverable, like Odell Beckham. Or Antonio Brown. But I mean, I think people inside the NFL know that it's a big receiver league for sure.
Yeah, I gotta redo. Or I gotta just dig back into my spreadsheets. But I think Beckham short area agility is the fastest player in my spreadsheets in my database. I believe. So he's the most expensive wide receiver on DraftKings this week. But how can you go? You can't go against that guy at this point. Like, it's hard to pay up for him in cash games, like when you're paying more than Calvin Johnson. But do you like him as a tournament play this week, Dan?
I guess because of percentage owned. If you want to go that route, the saying he's going to be under owned because of his price tag, I can see it, and he's obviously always going to be a good option. He's going to get the targets regardless of matchup, so he could easily produce, but it's hard to pay $9,000 for him on DraftKings.
He's like the perfect tournament play though, because he's not a price play at all. Like he is overpriced, but like you're not doubting the production. So like in that aspect, he's a perfect tournament play.
The thing is, like, where else are they going to funnel their offense? I mean, Andre Williams is probably going to struggle against the Rams D. The Rams eliminate tight ends. I mean, we've seen that every single time. Where else? Ruben Randall is a non-factor, and Preston Parker is, Preston Parker.
Dan's boy.
Right.
Dan's boy.
So where else are they going to get offense? Even if Eli throws for only 190 yards, I mean, I could see Odell Beckham having 110 and a touch or two.
Yeah, because that's who he is at this point. Like I am no longer fighting it. Like when anyone tries to troll me about Beckham now, I'm like, nope, he's great. He is great at football, because he is. There's no denying it, dude. He's so good. Like it's laughable how good he is at football.
Fantasy Douche recently suggested that he was the best wide receiver in the NFL. Did you see that?
I saw a couple people talking about that on Twitter. I mean, I disagree. Like, I think Demaryius is still pretty clearly the best wide receiver in football, but
I think he's top 10.
yeah, I think what I said to someone on Twitter today is that right after that Dez, Jordy, Calvin, Demaryius tier, I feel like he has put himself clearly in that conversation. But I also think Mike Evans has as well, considering the season he's having with Josh McCown as his quarterback. Dan is such a daily fantasy player that like this conversation bores the shit out of him.
Yeah, I don't even pay attention.
No, I know.
Everything I do is in the concept of daily.
Yeah, let's do tight end real quick because it should be literally the quickest conversation ever. I mean, it's Gronkowski. Like, last week he faced the number 1 rated tight end pass defense in Miami and had 98 yards and a touchdown. This week he faces the defense that is dead last by DVOA against the tight end. What convinced me to fade him, Evan? Do you have any argument to not use him?
No, I love him. The only thing is that I've had a little bit of trouble getting him in, whereas Graham works a little bit better, especially in my Breeze lineup. So how have you done it, Dan?
I just squeezed him in. I mean, he's priced as wide receiver, I think 14 on FanDuel and wide receiver 13 on DraftKings.
Such a steal.
You get him in over any other wide receiver for that price is essentially what it is. You have to sacrifice elsewhere. I think on DraftKings, I might legitimately flex for my Breeze teams. I might legitimately flex Kelsey or Jimmy Graham. I think both tight end options are flex worthy because of their price points.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey has 12 catches the last 2 weeks, gets a really good matchup, and there's Fasano still plays a little bit, but Kelsey is a starting part of that offense now. He is entrenched as the guy, and you know what I think it is. It's not that Andy Reid saw how good he was as a pass catcher or a creator of touchdowns. It was that Andy Reid watched the tape and saw how good he was at run blocking after that Seattle game. I think is what did, and that's how dumb NFL coaches are. But whatever, I can't be mad at it. But that's why he's playing so much.
So I also thought about Dwayne Allen if I wanted to go cheap at tight end. The Cowboys, and I thought about Fleener too, even though I hate his game so much. But he could have a lot of catches and yards, I mean, and he could score a TD. I mean, the Cowboys have given up 90 receptions to tight ends. That's a great season for a tight end. So, what about Kenny Stills?
So I think that every Saints receiving player is an option. I think Colson is an option. I think Stills is an option. I also think Toon is an option. So the thing with Stills is that, and you can play this game all day with what ifs, but if William Gay doesn't fall down and he doesn't catch that touchdown, he has 5 games of starting with I think 520 something yards, or maybe a little bit lower. But he has no touchdowns, and so he's a really high variance play, and it worked out the week that everyone was on him because his price tag was reduced on FanDuel. But I don't feel super great about him. What do you think about that, Dan? Am I just overreacting because I like Nick Toon?
No, I don't think you are. I think it's tough to peg down the wideout production from New Orleans. And I think that's mainly what it comes down to. I think no matter who you're picking from New Orleans is a good option, like you said, Davis. But I think it's tough to really definitively say this guy's got the best matchup, so he's gonna eat. That's just not how that offense works. It's all going to be split fairly evenly for the most part.
Yeah, it's Graham at the top, and then it's kind of everybody else competing for scraps. Is how I see it. So,
in that sense, I think for me, it's almost I don't necessarily want to play those options in cash games because I think it is hard to predict who's going to get the scraps, but I wouldn't blame anybody because the matchup is so good.
I mean, he hasn't been the only game he was a disappointment was the Panthers game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been fine. I'm not saying he's a bad play. I'm just saying that rostering him is not a direction that my lineups are going now.
Jordy.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved
him.
I loved what your matchup column said. That you might rank him as the number 1 wide receiver this week.
Yeah.
Might. Did you notice that? I'm scaling back the confidence. I'm
I
not.
know. I
I'm not
think
going hard
I'm
anymore.
taking that as good indicate. I'm taking that as good though.
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
mean,
whatever I can get.
it's hard. I mean, it's hard to put anyone above Calvin this week against like this just putrid Bears defense. But I mean,
I I, I,
Jordy gonna eat.
I might have Jordy 1 and Calvin 2 for this week. And actually on Thursday night I got into a bunch of Thursday games so that I could play Toby Gerhart and Jaguars D, and then I could get Rogers, Jordy, and Calvin in, and I got Graham in too. Toby
Yeah,
and Jaguars were min price.
yeah. See, that's what and you never get that on FanDuel. So that's why I should have actually looked into playing the Thursday night lock, is because you can never really get a serviceable running back for that price, and it opens up a lot. That's why it's so hard, and I think that's why Davis is out here recommending Nick Toon, is because it's so hard to get those guys that are under $5,000. And
Yeah.
if you can get one of those guys for under $5,000, it opens up so much.
Yeah, and I think it's just like, I mean, everyone universally agreed that Marcus Wilson was a great play last week. Like literally, not even one person was like, "Nah, I wouldn't do that," or at least not to me. And I just don't see a ton different between him and Toon, I guess. I guess Marcus Wilson played like a larger share of the snaps and was expected to play a larger share because Josh Morgan can't play on the outside. But
I just feel a little bit better about Marcus Wilson's ability than Nick Toon's.
oh, absolutely,
That's
totally
why
true.
I would have liked. That's why I liked Marcus Wilson. Um, Anyways,
Are we gonna talk about Johnny?
does he even exist?
Yeah, he does. Because this is like, okay. I wrote this like in my column, and basically I just said I don't feel like what happened last week was a huge mistake in terms of process, because there were some unpredictable things that happened with that game script, or things that I didn't weight enough, in terms of their defense being so bad that they were down 17-0 the first time Manziel actually had a standard drop back pass attempt. There were the incompletions on the third downs to Hawkins and Adre, whatever. Everyone knows and has heard it. I'm not going so far as to be like, oh, you have to use the Panthers defense or anything like that. And I still think Manziel is a good tournament option. But it's clear that with the conservative nature of that offense, like Mike Pettin doesn't want Manziel to be great. He just doesn't. He doesn't. So they're not going to let him be great, and he's not going to be great for your lineups, especially for cash right now. And I think it's as simple as that.
I think they wanted to win the game last week, so they designed the best that they could do. The defense totally laid an egg, and then you saw all of Johnny Manziel's limitations come out.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a very strong arm. He doesn't know how
He
to
throws
play,
off his back foot all the time.
and so that makes his arm look even worse. And he has no idea how to play like pocket quarterback, and he's not Russell Wilson at this stage.
No.
I think that's what you would want him to be, but he's not even close to that. So I don't know, man. I'm worried about him. Is he Troy Smith? Is he Pat White? Or is he Russell Wilson?
He's like, in my opinion, at this point, after like watching that game and doing some stuff, I think he's like 75% of Russell Wilson. Like he's gonna lose you some games, and he's never gonna be as efficient as Wilson is. But I'm not like, everyone's like, oh my god, Manziel, worst draft pick ever, worst quarterback, not gonna make it on Sundays. Like I don't know how anyone's drawing that conclusion.
No, I agree with that, and I agree that he's a good tournament play. Maybe you could stack him with Josh Gordon, whose prices has come way down. You know, I mean, there's no way I would use him in cash, and I was too confident about his floor last week for sure. That was a big mistake. But I do like him as a tournament play.
Yeah, and that's what he is right now. Like until that offense builds up around him a little bit, he's a tournament play, and that's fine. Like whatever.
Because he could legitimately, like, I mean, he could kind of suck, but he could still run for 2 TDs. You know, I mean, that's within his realm of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But
it is, and like I don't know who knows what lives inside of people, man. He might have just been like crushed by the game script, nervous, whatever. Like we don't know. Okay, let's go back. I don't know. Who else do you guys want to talk about? I feel like I got most of the guys that I like this week out there. I think this is like a great week. I wish that there was like a cheap quarterback play. Like I wish there was a Derek Anderson at minimum, because like every single high priced wide receiver this week is in like a great spot. So like I wish that there was a way to roster all those guys, but it doesn't appear that there is.
Had to play the Thursday slate, man, with Gerhardt.
Tabinho, yeah. I like that touchdown a lot. I have Tabinho going in my
NFL
final.
tens?
No. Well, my tens, yeah, for sure, but also in my final against Andy Behrens from Yahoo.
Sweet.
Dan, tournament plays that we don't have covered that you like?
I think if you want to go the Colts route with the Andrew Luck stack, I think I could see pairing him with Boom Herron, who's gotten double touches the last however many 3-4 weeks. I don't mind that if you want to go that way. And I'd be interested in hearing a little more Evan's reasoning, or where do you think, Evan, all of TY's distribution is going to go?
I mean, it usually gets spread out. Pagano talked about it some today. They're going to split out the tight ends. I mean, I think Fleener and Moncrief, the number one beneficiary. Hakeem Nicks is so like just done to me, but he could catch a red zone touchdown, easily. T.Y. Hilton actually has a lot of red zone usage this year. Chris Raybon was talking about that today. But I think Moncrief is the biggest beneficiary, and Kobe Fleener a close number two. Dan, you're kind of talking me into. I think I'm gonna throw out a tournament lineup with a Luck stack. I think that I like it, and really those guys are all pretty cheap. I mean, you could put in Moncrief, you could put in Fleener, and you could put in Heron, and you could put some studs in there with them.
Yep.
We should talk about millionaire maker himself, Drew Dinkmeyer's favorite player, Eddie Lacy. He could definitely eat this week, or because it's
Eddie Lacy eats every week.
Stop it, Evan.
He does. He does.
No,
he's
another guy who's just dead wrong. He's fat, but he's good, so it doesn't matter.
He's Jerome Bettis, man. He defies a lot of.
Yeah. No, he's good. Although, how great would be great for roster construction if, because it's Tampa Bay, they just decide to rest him and just let Starks go out there and eat.
I've had that thought numerous times this week.
That's why you can't play him. That's why you can't play him.
Yeah.
I guess we haven't really talked about Dallas RB situation. What's your take on that, Evan?
Oh, I think DeMarco Murray's going to play, and maybe they'll cut back some of his snaps and put in Lance Dunbar a little bit more, but, in pass pro, because he's got a surgically repaired hand, but I think DeMarco Murray gets at minimum 17 carries and maybe 30, depending on how the game goes.
If DeMarco doesn't go, like if they're just like, whatever, dude, then the chances of that happening are very slim, because I think it's clear that the organization is not going to re-sign him because they think they're going to sign Peterson over the offseason to play running back. But if he doesn't go, I really like Tony Romo. Because Romo's been crazy efficient all year. And if he sees a 10-15% bump in efficiency, he could score the most fantasy points at the quarterback position this week, I think.
But he's getting that he's that efficient because of DeMarco Murray. So is the volume offset? Does the volume increase get offset by a decrease in efficiency? Would be the question.
It absolutely could, because he really hasn't played. I mean, you could tell that his physical skills are not where they've been. Yeah, but at the same time, it would become. They would play, I think, shotgun spread. Is I think how they would attack the Colts. I don't think that they would just stick Joseph Randle in there and give him 30 carries. I really don't. I don't think they'd stick Joseph Randle into the DeMarco Murray role. I think they very well might play shotgun spread offense. That's what Scott Linehan did in Detroit with Matthew Stafford. I think we'd see a lot of Lance Dunbar.
Dunbar is catching 5 passes in this game regardless of DeMarco Murray's health, in my opinion. Because
Either way, I would like that. If DeMarco Murray were out, I like that idea from Davis of Romo like as a tournament play. But I think you're right too, though, Dan, that he could also suck if put into that kind of an environment because his physical skills are not what they were, for a variety of reasons, probably.
Well, and here's the other thing about Romo, like in terms of efficiency, is there's going to be a downgrade if DeMarco doesn't go, but the Cowboys still have like the best run blocking line in football. So Joseph Randle, despite basically being like a concrete gargoyle, can still average 4.5 yards per carry behind this line. So like the efficiency probably like you would expect maybe a 0.5, 0.6 drop in adjusted yards per attempt, but with 10 extra attempts or 8 extra attempts, that efficiency is going to be made up for, I think. So I really like him if DeMarco doesn't go. Is the general point there?
Yeah, I think DeMarco's playing though, and I don't. I think it's a non-issue. Are you guys looking at the Saturday slate at all?
Nah, you can break it down if you want though. I literally haven't even looked.
Yeah, ditto.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just think it's a good question for people that maybe they just started on FanDuel or on DraftKings and they're looking at it and they don't know, is it a good idea to play that? I mean, why don't we talk about that a little bit?
I think it's fine. I mean, if I'm playing, looking at the games that are going off Saturday night, if I'm playing, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of exposure. Possibly the Eagles offense, someone on, a wideout, possibly Macklin. But the other game, the 49ers-Chargers game, is probably unplayable as far as a fantasy perspective goes. It looks like I think Keenan Allen and both Ryan Matthews are already declared out. But if I'm playing Saturday night, yeah, it's the only exposure I'm probably having is through the Eagles offense.
So it's just a one-day slate, though. Like, if you're going to play it on FanDuel, you're probably playing a tournament, right? Because you're not.
Oh, they don't even have, do they? I was thinking about it's just like a Saturday Sunday slate, but you're just talking Saturday slate.
Yeah.
That just seems gross to me. Like I don't want any part of that. Like I tend to avoid small slates in like every sport. Like I don't play 4-game NBA slates. I don't play 4-game baseball slates. Like I think that increases the variance because like it's just easier to make the right plays because there are less decisions to make. And like if you think you're a skilled daily fantasy player, you want to give your opposition more choices to make so they have more chance of making of messing up.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and it kind of adds on to what Davis is saying. If you want to play, a 2-3 game slate for NFL, kind of like what we had the 3-game slate for Thanksgiving, which is awesome because they had a ton of large tournaments as well. Theoretically, it's smarter to attack those by playing GPPs as opposed to cash games and putting multiple lineups in because just looking at the numbers, it's obviously easier to get on the right combo because there's not theoretically you could put a lineup in with every single combo possible if you only have 2 games to go through. So you have a better chance at just actually hitting the nuts, whereas that's obviously a lot harder to do on any given Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I mean, I feel a lot better about this week. Like, I feel similarly good about this week as I did last week. Like, nothing is going to match that Week 14 massacre where, like, nothing worked and all my plays were terrible. I didn't feel good about anything. Like, it was just such awful. A bad week. It was not fun at all.
How is, like, Drew Brees literally, I mean, he's on fire, and he has this one game. Man, it hurts.
I actually,
hurts. I think about it every day.
It's gonna come down to something like that this week.
It is.
It's gonna. One of the top quarterbacks is gonna explode. One of them's gonna throw up a stinker, and it's gonna be whatever. You got to be on the right side to win.
You know what it was the equivalent of? Pirates and Coors. which Evan actually remembers. Evan was actually playing a little bit of baseball back then, and he like messaged me, and I was like, "Dude, gotta get Andrew McCutchen in 0 for 12 with 8 Ks over the weekend."
Yeah, dude, wasn't it it was 3 games all in a row?
It was 3 games. They scored 2. It was the lowest scoring offensive series, I think of like the last decade in Coors.
And the next game, I was like, "Oh, McCutchen, he went 0 for 5 yesterday, so he's definitely going to go off today." And then I remember that.
The best part's going to be Padres at Coors this year. But moving on.
Yeah.
Kickers.
So it's weird this week. There are like no min price kickers that you can use. Like you can't use
I know.
You can't use Jay Feely. So like you actually have to like pay up a little bit at kicker, which is like super frustrating in my opinion. Like totally. I hate it.
I keep like looking at it and be like, can I talk myself into that? That 4,500. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, just let Matt Forte get 120 yards rushing, but never be able to convert on third down. So just like infinite field goals, like 5 field goals. I mean, stranger things have happened, I guess.
I mean, Connor Barth was like a week winner last week.
He was, and that's why I hate the stinking kicker position.
I know.
What was Connor Barth's salary last week?
4,700 on FanDuel. He was
Damn,
cheap. He was the best player of the week for sure.
I played Cairo Santos because he was cheap. I hate it. This is actually okay. Here's a little bit of strategy talk that's interesting. Defense. Most people are going to have to choose. The right choice this week is Lions or Seahawks. Okay, so you know how I just said Jimmy Clausen has a 4.1 adjusted yards per attempt for his career? Ryan Lindley has a 2.7 adjusted yards per attempt for his career. He has thrown 181 passes, has thrown 7 interceptions, and has never thrown a touchdown pass. So, it's just like, and it's the best defense in football, basically. So which one are you choosing, Dan?
Seattle.
Evan?
I mean, of those two, Seattle, I don't like road Ds. I avoid road Ds.
Oh, trust me, I'm all aboard. Like, they always play a D at home, but I will make a special exception for
Ryan Lindley
and his 2.7 adjusted yards per attempt.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The one that I think might be a trap is the Lions D, because I really think Mark Trestman is an offensive wizard. I really do, and I think that he's going to make Jimmy Clausen look serviceable on Sunday.
Well, that's why they said they were benching Cutler, was to prove that all the turnovers and stuff were Cutler's problem and not the system. That was what Trestman said. Like, his point was that was like a report from it, I guess, from Chicago.
I like Ramsey. I like Ramsey, Trey Mason.
Ramsey, Tavon Austin. Yeah,
okay,
buddy.
Yeah.
All aboard.
I also kind of like it. Oh, this is such a bad recommendation, but I kind of like Raiders D, Latavius Murray.
I could see it if you
Raiders
really
D against Kyle Orton, and if you really want to bet on that Bills letdown, and Raiders D is the bare minimum price
on FanDuel and DraftKings. DraftKings they're $2,200. There's a $1,500 difference between Seahawks D and Rams D on DraftKings, and that goes a long ways on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think that what I wrote in my column was that this year on DraftKings there has not been a better combination of matchup and price and talent of defense than the Lions versus Clausen. Like I totally agree with you on the Trestman stuff, Evan, but Clausen gonna Clausen in my opinion.
He might. He very well might, and it seems like everybody's assuming that he will.
He's gonna throw a touchdown. He's like, that'll happen. He'll throw 200 yards and a touchdown, because he'll be chucking the whole second half too.
He's very, very limited, but Trestman knows how to make quarterbacks that aren't good look a lot better than they are. Mm-hmm. Except for he couldn't do it with Jay Cutler, and that's what everybody will point to. But I just think the Lions D are a little bit of a trap, and you know. I don't think that I just don't think they're going to have a big day. I'll say that.
Yeah, I disagree with you. Like I think that they're in a tremendous spot. I could see like preferring another defense for them on FanDuel where like the price isn't the same. But, like I know I just spent 5 minutes defending the Boy King, but you can also use the Panthers defense on FanDuel just because even if he has a good game, there's a good chance that he turns the ball over a couple times.
What happened with Panthers D, Evan? Like I know they cut Kaysen, but what happened? Why are they randomly good now? Or why were they randomly
They always
bad
had good players. They always had good players.
They were the second defense by adjusted DVOA last year.
But yeah, they were like the best defense in the league, other than Seattle, and they were pretty close to Seattle. They still have a lot of good players. It's just they lost Greg Hardy, and when their front seven was so good that they could mask the problems in the back end because they were just so disruptive, and they would take away your running game, and they were just they're like the Lions right now. The Lions don't have all pros in the secondary. Their front seven is just so freaking good that it doesn't really matter. And then they lost Greg Hardy, and Charles Johnson was a little banged up early in the year, and but they always had pretty good players. So now they're like an above average defense, and we got to treat them that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can agree with that, and like I think that. We definitely would not be talking about this as much if Breeze got a second touchdown on that last drive, like where they got down to the red zone and didn't end up converting in that last garbage time drive. But like people would just be less intently focusing on like what was happening with the Panthers D because Breeze's numbers wouldn't have been as bad, and that's what drew everyone's attention to it. That should about wrap it up, though. Have we covered everything that you wanted to talk about, Evan?
Yeah, I think so.
Dan?
You got it.
Yeah. Play Gronkowski. He's going to just so many Gronk smashes this week. It's happening. That's why I write the same thing about him every single day or every single week, and it never changes.
The only thing that scares me about Gronkowski is that this is Rex Ryan's Super Bowl, and I don't know if he's going to let Rob Gronkowski beat him, but he also doesn't really have the defensive personnel to go like shut down Gronkowski. So
no one does because no one else has Zeus on their roster.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's a fun slate for sure. Pay up at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Pay up at quarterback on DraftKings. Seriously consider flexing a tight end because I think that's where there's a lot of value in their pricing there.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of sexy.
All right, David, you want to take us out?
Oh boy, do I ever! But you guys are in separate cities.
Got to buy us dinner first, buddy.
Okay, maybe one day. So thanks to Evan Silva from RotoWorld.com and Davis Maddock and Dan Gasper from Fantasy Insiders. You can catch Evan's matchup article on RotoWorld, and you can catch Davis Maddock's fine automatic absolutes with man. Did you see that picture? That cover boy picture? Sexy.
Really went out on a limb with Calvin Johnson too.
Yeah. So
that's what you typically do.
You're known for that.
I went out on a limb last week and got bludgeoned over the head. So
Albert Wilson is the out on the limb play this week for Davis Maddock.
And Tune.
There are bowl games that are starting up, so make sure you are. These bowl games are pretty much worthless except for daily fantasy. So make sure.
Correct. Also, parlays are fun.
Not on player props, though.
No, it tilts me every once every 2 months.
No, we're not.
I'm just like Dan. Why can't I parlay player props?
We're not getting into this. We will end the show now. Thanks for everybody tuning in, and we'll catch you later.